Well, you asked me for this video, you asked me to check out Private Accord up against Absolute, which is a fragrance that I've been going on and on about for over a year now. And so I got this, and as you can see, I've been wearing it because I've been wearing this so much and enjoyed it so much. I've nearly worn it as much as this, but I've been overspraying. I've been watching too many curly fragrance videos. So what I'm just going to say straight off the bat is that these are two phenomenal designer fragrances. They're fantastic in so many different ways. I don't feel as though one is necessarily better than the other, but I feel as though one will function better than the other for certain occasions. But let me just kind of go down a breakdown, if you will, comparing the two, and let's just get to it. So let's first, it's a little bit trivial I suppose, let's break down the presentation and which one wins in that account. I actually think that the Private Accord looks so much cooler and so much more interesting and vibrant than Absolute. I do like the Absolute bottle. I think that both bottles look great. It's a great design in general for the scent, but I'm just gonna have to say, yeah, Private Accord is legit, and I'd say that that's probably yeah, the better bottle. So let's get to the scent, and this is of course the biggest difference that people will be interested in. They're both by the same perfumier, by the way, so there's no sort of real difference, and you can tell that it is. You can tell it's the same line. You can tell that there's a similar intention behind both fragrances, and that's great. They're definitely in the same family, and that's fantastic. So I've always described Absolute, the scent Absolute, as a fragrance that is an amalgamation of many of the different designer tonka bean sweet fragrances, all produced into one fine bottle with the heavy addition of vetiver that really streamlines it and makes it sophisticated. The one thing that I've always called this fragrance is solid. And I do genuinely believe that I don't have to buy things like Wanted by Night or even Invictus because I've got my fill with this. Private Accord is definitely similar, but it is more striking. And the thing in particular that's striking and the difference between these two is the opening. The opening of Absolute is very lovely and woody and sweet with that vetiver as well, and just gives it a great opening. But Private Accord, when you put it on, you're going to get this sort of dark chocolate hit that's actually surprisingly bitter. And that was something that really took me off guard, especially with the fact that Absolute is very well balanced in its sweetness. This does take it further with that. Honestly, it's like, you know, one of those 70 or 80% cocoa chocolates that you bite into and you get that kind of bitter taste. You shouldn't really be eating it, you should be more cooking with it. I actually get a little bit with Private Accord very quickly and very sharply. However, it's almost like that's an initial explosion, and then as it dries down and dries down and dries down, that bitterness just sort of blends super well with everything. This has got less vetiver, but it's still got that signature warm, woody sweetness that's in Absolute, and I presume is in the original scent. It's been a long while since I smelled the original. But yeah, this is more pronounced. This is Private Accord. It's more pronounced. It's more gourmandy, it's more chocolatey. This one is more situated around amber, and if you just sort of put it down, this is attempting to do a great balancing act. This is Absolute we're talking about. This is trying to be striking, authoritative, more confident. As they dry down, there are differences. There is kind of like a vetiver, but it's more a harshy, rooty vetiver, whereas this one's got a bit more of a greener tinge that's calming everything down. So overall, I would give both 5 out of 5. I think that they're both phenomenal fragrances, and I'm so happy that they're not only in my collection, but they don't make the other redundant. That's what made me nervous about buying Private Accord. I thought to myself, okay, well, what if Absolute's amazing? Then I've basically just got two of the same thing. And then, God forbid, right, I thought, well, what if I prefer Private Accord? But it's not quite like that. Even though they are in the same family, they are attempting to do quite different things. So with that in mind, the scent Absolute is a lot more streamlined. I actually feel as though I can recommend this to more people than I can Private Accord, even though Private Accord, conversely, is the more popular scent than this one. but I can see why, because it's quite original and quite brilliant at what it does. But Absolute is for pretty much anybody who wants a solid fall, winter designer scent that wants an amalgamation of everything that is cool and is popular right now. I think that it still functions in that way as a condensed version, an abridged version of modern designers, and I will, argue that and continue with that premise on this fragrance. So I actually feel as though there's a broader range with Absolute. I feel as though a lot more men and people of mostly any age can wear. I'd say that if you're below the age of 21, maybe not, but 21 and above, and especially 25 and above, then you're going to be kicking some serious arse with this fragrance. In your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, you can definitely pull this off. And there is a mainstream appeal, there is a mass appeal that is just absolutely exuding from this scent profile that makes it really work. Private Accord, on the other hand, with that sharpness, with that bitterness, this is a bolder composition. And I'd say that this is actually quite a mature fragrance, and I would actually start to set the bar more at 25 to somebody in their 30s, 40s. This has got a real confidence to it. This has got a real va-va-voom to it, especially with that bitterness, which is a very almost taboo subject in designer mainstream fragrances, to have something that's bitter, that's that's anti-sugary sweetness, especially now. It was more common certainly in the 60s and the 70s. So this is harkening back with that bitter chocolate to a more mature and masculine time, in my opinion, but of course it varies from person to person. But I would say that this is somebody who maybe in a suit and tie, somebody who's well dressed, somebody who's got their whole hair game and everything just like put together. This is a more sleeker, a far more cosmopolitan take on this DNA. This is like leather or suede shoes. This is fashion. This is Hugo Boss bottled. This is Hugo Boss fashion really playing into itself here. But of course, if you are younger, please feel free to test it. I don't want to stop anybody from wearing anything, but this is just my central recommendation. So this is Absolute with the scent more casual, more wearable, more durable. Scent Private Accord, more confident, more striking, more slicker, more, like I said, more dressed up. But at the end of the day, these are both fantastic compositions and really just some of the best mainstream designers going right now. Projection and longevity, I've got to say that the Private Accord, on my skin at least, does win. Projection, at least. This is a really powerful scent cloud and is more powerful than the Absolute. And I think that the reason being potentially is that there's more peaks and valleys with Private Accord. Absolute is a little bit more softer and a little bit more grounded and a little bit more of a straightforward waveform than an up and down waveform that Private Accord is. So projection, I'd say that yes, Private Accord would be probably a 5 out of 5 and Absolute would be a 4. Longevity, however, they're kind of the same. I've seen multiple comments where people say, oh, well, actually the Private Accord, it's got that big bold opening and then it just sort of peters out and dries down, and I can report that that is my thoughts pretty much exactly. It's got a very strong, bitter, wild, chocolatey opening, but yes, the dry downs are somewhat similar. There are differences, of course, because it's a different note breakdown, but yeah, that similar, straightforward line is going there. I say that longevity wise, yeah, they're both a 5 out of 5. So overall, I don't want to say that there's a winner or anything like that, because there's not really. Which do I prefer? That's really difficult. I think that I will be reaching more for Absolute now that I've really given this a great wearing. I do love that harsh bitter chocolate with a little bit of fruit and wood and everything that's going on with here. But the Absolute is something that I could just see myself wearing more. But I will crack this out at special occasions. I will crack this out, especially when I'm dressed up to either a restaurant or theatre or something. This feels more like a special fragrance. This feels more like an everyday fragrance. I love them both. I'm so happy that I've got them both, and thank goodness. The question that I asked myself, that you may be asking yourself, is, does one make the other redundant? No, you can actually own both and you'll be fine. Overall, I'm going to give both of these bad boys a 5 out of 5. For the context of what they are, they're both absolute stunners. I'd recommend either you own both or test out each individually to find out your separate needs. Hope that you got something from this. I think I'll be wearing Absolute now, actually. I do love it, you know I love it. But yeah, hope that you got some great information from this fragrance review. And if you did, please consider hitting subscribe and that notification bell. Either way, Hugo Boss The Scent is a fantastic, phenomenal line. One of the best lines in the designer world right now. Go and check it out. I'm the Fragrance Press. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Bye.